Hey, how are you, Aaron?
I'm great. I'm great. So happy to speak with you.
Yeah, you too. I'm sure you've had a long day of talking to people.
I love it. I could talk about this show all day. The one thing I never have a problem doing is talking, especially about my show.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
So, how
So
did you and Luke decide to turn this comic book into a TV series?
yeah, I mean, a lot of that credit goes to Luke, who had the rights to this comic, and we had worked together in a couple little projects, and he said, "Look, I have this dream project that I want to make," and he had been trying to make it a movie and explored a limited series and a couple other options. And I knew the writer and was familiar with his work, but had not read Revival. I'd heard of it, and then I read the first issue and was totally hooked. And I was like, "Dude, not only do I want to make this, I think this is a pilot." And I think that this is, I think we can go so many different directions with this. I see an entire world to play with. The characters are so rich and so interesting. And I was like, let's make this like a full-on series. And I think it's possible. And I had never made a series before. I
Yeah.
come from the indie producing world, produced about 25 features. So this was a new thing. But I was looking for the next creative venture to kind of sink my teeth into, as a writer. And I was like, I see this. I can already see the show. Luke was so passionate about it, and thankfully they gave me the like a shopping agreement to go get this thing made, and we did. Yeah,
Great. So, was it difficult for you at all to transition into TV?
I mean, it was in that being a showrunner is definitely the most daunting thing I've ever done. But it was odd because I've been a producer for so long. And I mean, I was a writer and then became a director to protect my writing, became a producer to protect my directing. So it was my heart was always in the writing. So I had that side, that I did off and on, but had produced so many features. And I also was a manager in like the game world for a long time. So I've had tons of employees and so just kind of understood. I'm a very pragmatic person, analytical person. And so I knew how to manage different personalities and people and work in a budget. So all of those tools really paved the way for me here, to move into TV. And I put everything into it, and I think it really feels like the perfect mix of the things that I'm most passionate about and might be like okay at if I keep doing this. Hopefully I can. So yeah, I mean, it was a weird thing where it was daunting, but at the same time, so exciting and felt so in my wheelhouse.
Pardon me.
Oh, no worries.
Sorry, just allergies.
Oh, oh, bless you. Yeah,
Let me just coughing. Mm.
all good.
Yeah. So, you wear all these different hats. So do you identify more as producer in general or a showrunner or what's your
For this show, it's like creator showrunner. I mean, I'm the lead writer on the show, and Luke and I wrote together everything, but I was really spending a lot of time, even on the our writer scripts and what was there to kind of make them work for the budget that we had. And so that's where I took the most pride in is the creating of the show itself, and what's there. But yeah, as a producer, that's an easy hat for me to wear too, right? And
okay?
and shift gears as far as what's going on. So, but yeah, show running, creating was and the writing was really, really my
So
favorite part.
what is it about the horror genre that appeals to you?
I mean, well, first off, as a kid, I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies.
Ah,
So that, of course, created this kind of like fiend into horror and into the genre world as I got older, because it was the forbidden fruit, and you start to kind of pave that way. But I think what it is that you get to tell crazy stories and or you get to tell like interesting stories within a crazy environment,
mhm.
and I've made movies that were about my brother and my father, but then I add cowboys and witches to it and now it becomes
Right.
a movie, and so you're finding these balances of how that can work. And I think it's just so much fun. Like I mean, like I don't think I'll ever not work in genre, like we'll flex our muscles in different ways. And
Mhm.
I mean, even now I'm writing a sports horror movie. I have a horror documentary we're trying to do.
Wow.
So I think I want to stay in that space because it's very much what I know. If I may, I'm a bit of like a horror cinephile aficionado. Like I just watch everything, know all the stuff. So it's very much playing with the tropes and subverting those and pushing them is such a big part of what I love to do.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've heard that about sci-fi a lot when they say, oh, well, you can do anything you want in that framework and it somehow works better than it might if you were doing like a realistic. show. And
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it gives you liberty to kind of play with stuff in such a unique way, and I think that's really really fun.
and was Melanie Scrofano your first choice for heroine?
Yeah, I mean, it was when we were going through like the list and we were trying to work with students some money, we were trying to focus on some Canadian actors. And then we were sent like these first few that were kind of approved and that everybody kind of liked. And I had seen her a little bit in Winona Earp, but did not watch the show a ton. And then I remember her in Ready or Not, and then Letterkenny and some other stuff. And I was like, okay, wow, she's got range. Let me see what's here. And we watched her reel, and I was like, oh my God. Like she is magic. She is magic. And so, yeah. And then immediately it was like, this is, and Blue Eyes already had a relationship with her, the Canadian production company. And I was like, this is it. Like she's Dana. Like we just need to put freckles on her. And then we did, and then that's it. And then I'm like, this totally works. And it became really fun because that was the first domino to fall in casting. You bring your Dana in, and then we kind of filled the gaps from there and where everything else is going to fall in. And I'm so proud of what Melanie has done in the show and what she's become and what people are going to see. Because I think now that I've watched so much of her stuff and
Mhm.
almost I haven't finished all of Winona Earp, but I've watched a ton of it now,
Right?
and I see what's there. I'm like, goodness, like we are doing some things that I don't think she's ever done,
Hmm.
and I think it's really exciting for people to see, and I can't wait for people to get to check
I
it
mean, I
out.
see a
Yeah.
lot of parallels between the two shows, besides the fact that they're both on Syfy and have her as the star. She and her sister have a great relationship,
Hmm.
and she's going after these weird things, and she's good with a gun. I mean, there's a lot of little things like this. Obviously, your show's a little more grounded in, if one can say that about a horror movie, in real life,
Yeah.
you know, than Wyatt Earp, which was way out there, and Wyatt Earp, Winona Earp,
Yeah.
way out there.
Yeah, it is. But also part of that too is just once you cast Melanie Scrofano, you lean into this this unbelievable personality that kind of comes through in certain takes. And you would see it on the day. And like the first couple days we were shooting, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so funny. And I would write more jokes in her voice. And once I started to understand her voice, then it became really, really fun to kind of lean into and tweak. And but that's credit to what Melanie brings
That's
to the screen.
great. Did Sci-Fi slash NBC Universal did they just let you do whatever, or did they have any notes or anything like that?
They definitely had notes. Yes, they had a lot of notes. But I had one of our main executives I've known for many years, so and who I pitched it to, and so we had a good relationship, and I think there was some trust that had been built there.
Hmm.
But also, I'm a first time showrunner. Luke and I are first time showrunners together, and my co-creator, and so they definitely there were concerns and like, well, are you sure you can do these things? But we felt very confident in the structure that we had kind of built and the team that we had built around us and surrounding ourselves with a lot of expertise. And but yeah, there's a lot of they want you to kind of stay in a little bit of a safe box
Hmm.
sometimes. And I'm like, hey, like I believe the audience is more savvy than that. I believe that we can breadcrumb this, and they might not have the answers yet, but I think if we can make it intriguing and lean into it the right way, I think you're going to find great opportunities to reward an audience member who is patient with you. And so there were times on the page where like I don't think this is going to work, and I decided like I think it will. And then they saw it in the edit. They're like, you know what? We didn't think it would work, but it did. That was great. And I'm like, see, I knew it. I knew it. And there's sometimes too where we were completely wrong and
Uh,
they were completely right. And we learned those lessons as well in post. But I think it was a wonderful, wonderful collaboration. And they were really, really great to kind of give us the freedom. First time showrunners to do this is,
yeah.
is really, really not normal. And I'm going to be rest of my life grateful for that opportunity.
Well, I hope you're right that the viewers are patient because I think sci-fi and horror fans are probably a little more patient than your average viewer. But there have been a lot of shows
Well,
where there's been like a lot of mystery that unfolds over a season or two, and sometimes they just go, "I've had enough," or "I'm not that interested." But I think that's more on like broadcast TV than on cable or streaming. One,
but we also wanted to be aware of that. We want to be
yeah.
cognizant of it. I think it's like, how do you create intrigue that maybe doesn't give you all the answers immediately, but then you need to make sure that you are answering those answers.
Absolutely.
Like it can't just be another mystery because once you
Yeah.
start asking too many questions, then it becomes confusing.
Hmm.
So what we like to do is we might answer a question, but then ask a new one. So it's like you can feel the baby steps that are moving along, and then how can this culminate? But we're very big on, okay, does this make sense by the time you get to the end? And we think it does. And I think there's a lot of fun stuff, especially the end of every episode. We spent so much time crafting the end of every episode. That's like, that gives you just enough that's like you got to come back for more. And I think it's going to be really fun.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I watched the 4 episodes they let me see, and the end of the fourth one is like, oh my gosh. So I really, now
Oh yeah.
you've got me hooked. I gotta watch the rest of it for sure.
Oh my goodness. Wait till you get to episode six. Wait
Oh,
till you get to
wow.
episode six.
Okay.
That is
So
my, yeah, my
one
favorite
thing that
one.
I really liked was that I mean, there is some gore and violence and all that, but it wasn't too much, which I appreciate because it was one thing I didn't like about Winona Earp. Frankly, I love the actors and the characters and everything, but once somebody stuck their thumb in somebody's eyeball, I'm like, oh, never mind, I'm not watching the rest of this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So was that intentional to not go too far that way?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think, the comic itself does have some real lore into it.
Right. Yeah.
And there might be an episode or two that you might need to look away a couple moments, I will say. But I think we still wanted to keep it grounded in this story about Dana and M and with the comic in particular, Wayne wasn't as big of a character. We wanted to make him a bigger character here. And the Cypress family, and just kind of stay focused on that. And that even if you have these kind of crazy moments, you can get back to the melodrama, you can get back to the quirky characters, get back to something that feels fun. I mean, a big motto with my company, Paper Street Pictures, is horror with heart. So
Mhm.
you might have the gore, you might have something that happens in a moment that's like quick and like,
Right.
but then it pulls you into an emotion and something fun that can keep even the people who aren't the gore hounds happy. But then if you are a gore hound, you'll have some stuff that's there. So, but it's not meant to go over the top. It's meant to feel real within the parameters of the world we've created, and but also all practical. I mean, that was the thing too. We didn't really want to do a lot of like the visual effects. There's a ton of visual effects, but
Right.
not in that element. Those
Right.
should accentuate the practical effects. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I really appreciate you talking to me, and I hope it is a big success, and I'll definitely be watching the rest of it.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for chatting. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.